Welcome to Choose the Nickel. I'm your host, George Bailey. My co-founder and technical support is the gorgeous Christina Bailey. This podcast is about giving kids financial freedom. We're interviewing fascinating people for their insights about how children learn to be financially savvy. Our guests come from diverse, sometimes conflicting schools of thought, and we love the opportunity to learn from them. We encourage all to weigh our guests' ideas on how to help children thrive, both financially and in general. We invite you to visit our website at www.choosethenickel.com, subscribe to our newsletter, and try out the things we are learning on the podcast. Our next episode features Jacob Salem, founder and CEO of EZMetrics and the digital marketing expert behind the Zig Ziglar presence online. Jacob grew the Zig Ziglar Facebook page to over 4 million likes and followers organically without paying for a single like. He and his team of online and social media experts work with small businesses, large corporations, and entrepreneurs to exponentially grow their brands online to get more leads and close more sales. He has taught thousands how to succeed in the digital marketing realm. Ladies and gentlemen, Jacob Salem. Jacob Salem, welcome to the show.
Well, glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I had the privilege of meeting you at the Inspire event in Chicago. It was terrific. You gave a terrific talk, and I really enjoyed it. And it gave me the sense that you would be a really wonderful person to have on the podcast. I wanted to ask you, first and foremost, what are your favorite professional accomplishments?
That's a really loaded question because I'm not sure I could really narrow it down to just one. Throughout my professional career, I've been able to build and sell 2 companies. Very proud of that. Proud of the first more than the second. I've also had the privilege of traveling and preaching as an evangelist. I'm very, very proud of that. We've built an online following for that ministry to over 1 million followers. And then lastly, probably the one that I'm most proud of today is we've built a turnkey digital marketing agency where we help speakers, trainers, and coaches really get out in the market and generate revenue on and off stage, as well as help generate leads for small business owners. And so the latter is probably my most proud because I'm doing it today. But there's been so many stepping stones to get me to where I am. And all of those helped create me into the person I am today. And so I would have to throw those into my answer as well.
I like how when I asked you that question, your reaction was like, oh, you're asking me to discard several of my children in favor of the one that I like the most. I see.
That's really how I felt. That's exactly how that question feels to me. There's not one right answer. There's so many good things going.
And it's exciting when you're in your rhythm and you're doing good things. I think that that's a really great feeling. I congratulate you on your successes. One of the things that sticks out to me is that you helped build the Zig Ziglar page on Facebook into about 4 million followers using your EZMetrics system and whatnot. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And this is helping Zig Ziglar group, that's already pretty dang good at what they do in terms of getting out there.
Yeah, Tom Ziglar allowed me to have my company come alongside them about 4 years ago when we took the page over. Billy Cox with Billy Cox Motivation was another great page, was running it at the time. And so we started by just taking on their Facebook, and then we dabbled into their email marketing and their website and landing pages and funnels and core offers. And they probably give me a little more credit than I'm due. My company has done amazing things. We're honored and we love to work alongside the Ziglar Corporation. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. Ziglar himself wrote countless books, influenced 250 million people. And so although we did use algorithm when we use a really good strategy to grow their brand and really help position them and market in the year we're in, Mr. Zig Ziglar left a legacy that is very easy to go out there and publicize. And so I want to make sure he gets the respect he's due, and also thank Tom Ziglar for allowing my company to help out.
Well, what I enjoy about what you're doing is that it's a lot harder than people think.
Yep.
You don't just, there are very few overnight successes, relatively speaking, in terms of social media. It's really hard to get the word out on what it is that you do. So what is it about that you really enjoy?
For me and our team, so now that I have a full team, and we didn't for the longest time, it was just a few of us, we joke about whose role is the best and who's most important, because now we've laser specific into, we have 2 guys that all they do is run paid ads. We have 2 people that all they do is copywriting. We have other people that all they do is build landing pages. So for me, I truly, genuinely have to say I've decided that my favorite part of this role is really the email marketing, where you can nurture someone and send them through a follow-up campaign and really begin to build trust through automated follow-up, automated text messages, automated voicemails, and of course, automated emails, which if written in the right way, you can really, really build a relationship. However, my Facebook ad experts think that targeting the right people with the right message wouldn't even get them into the nurture sequence. So the nurture sequence is not important because without them, nobody would even know about us. Yeah. And then our landing page experts are saying, well, if the landing page wasn't designed to convert, then nobody would sign up for the Facebook ad. Therefore, nobody would get into the email nurture. So how is that not important? And so really all of it, I think all facets of digital marketing fascinate me. But my favorite truly is the follow-up, nurturing someone to getting them to really feel like they know and trust me without ever speaking with me.
I'm just expressing my own opinion, but it's an observation. Even you as a business owner don't purport to be a subject matter expert in everything that your business does.
Nope.
You've identified that one thing that you do really well, and then you've built a business around that one thing so that there are other peripheral segments of it. And I think that that's really important for all of us in terms of starting our own businesses, recognize that there's something that you do really well, and there are a lot of things you don't. Would you say that that's fair? What's your thoughts?
That is absolute. And if I could, I don't know whether I'm humbling myself or criticizing myself more. As I've hired more experts in the industry and we've really brought on and had team members hone into specific skills, I've realized I'm not great at any of it. I used to do all of it, right? I used to do everything. Well, I was the Facebook ad guy. I was the graphic designer. I was the copywriter. I was the website builder. I did all of it. But now what we do in this business is we have those very specific people, and it's my job to oversee what they do. And they got way better at me at writing emails. They got way better at targeting on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube ads. And because I saw them become experts, even though I have my 10,000 hours in, if you want to refer to your 10,000 hours in order to be an expert philosophy and book that's out there, even though I have those hours, I brought in other people. So now what I do as the business owner is I circle back to a Steve Jobs quote, and I'm probably not going to quote this exactly correct, but
we let people paraphrase. We're good with that.
Right. So he said something along the lines that I never actually did any of the coding in Apple. I never built any of the products. I never did any of that. I was the one that instructed everybody else. They say in an orchestra, you have your violinist, you have your different musicians that play instruments. He said, well, it's my job to be the conductor and I lead the orchestra. And so that's really the position I've taken. So I use all the books that I have in my studio with me, and I use all the things around me to learn and really continue to grow. So that way I can lead the team that's actually doing the work and that is truly the expert at their role in this job.
Taking that back to your childhood, if you could attribute your current day successes to an experience or a series of experiences during your childhood, what would that experience be?
I really got to give a vast amount of the credit to my father. So my dad currently owns 2 companies, and he's we'll call him a solopreneur. He is basically the guy that does everything in his company, from signing the checks to sweeping the floor to everything. He still does everything in his company. He owns 2, and he has a few employees underneath him. And so there's different systems and things that I've gone out and learned to implement to where I don't have to do some of the things he still enjoys to do. But what I saw as a child growing up was I saw when the sun came up, he was up and working. And what he always said repeatedly to me growing up, that while the sun is up, you got to make the hay, right? That's when you work. And he had a work ethic that is still unmatched today. He still works 12 hours a day and he enjoys it. It's what he likes to do with his life. I chose a different path for my hours. That's why we put in systems and strategies to where I didn't have to do that. But I learned a work ethic from him that I match when I need to. I believe that when you don't have money in your business, so this would be for startups or for people who are just getting out there, you have sweat equity. You can never overuse your energy or your effort, and you can always go back to it. Every time you go to bed, you wake up with new energy, new thoughts, new imagination, new dreams. And so when you don't have the financial resources to go invest in the team, and when you don't have the financial resources to go run paid ads, and when you don't have the financial resources to go build a good modern minimalist website, you can wake up every day with the imagination and the drive to go out there and outwork your competitors, and you can outcall them. The phone book still exists. Now, many millennials might not know what that is, but you can still grab a phone book and you can start calling.
I don't know what you're talking
owners.
About.
Right.
I don't know. So I'm very interested, though, in this experience of you're waking up, you walk in, and dad is working. Describe for me what that felt like, what that looked like.
Yeah, I actually didn't mind it. I picked up the shovel right next to him. So one company he owns currently is Salem Lawn Sprinkler. And he installs sprinkler systems and he manages them. So in-ground lawn sprinkler systems. I picked up the shovel with him. I remember working with him when I was very young. I loved working right alongside him. It was a joy for me to be able to do it.
What time was he getting up?
We'll say 5 a.m. was normal. 5 a.m. was a normal routine for him. And so I matched that even still today. I learned it in my childhood, and every day. Actually, I'm up at 4 a.m. now. I'm going through a fitness thing. And so I'm up at 4. But typically, if I sleep in until about 5 at the latest.
I know a few people who are 4 a.m.ers, and I salute you. I dare not follow you. I'm a 5 a.m.er. I don't know how you do it. Honestly, I don't. Tell me a little bit about that routine, though.
So now,
and then I do want to go back to your childhood, but I just want to, let's segue a little bit to that because I'm very interested in how in the world, do you do that? Yeah.
Well, having a crying baby at 4 a.m. that helps, but no, not just that. I actually get up and very intentionally go out and run or go to Planet Fitness. As I was building this dream, this third successful company, I was putting in so many hours behind my desk that I wasn't exercising. And due to lack of time, I was going to McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell and any other fast food place I could get to. And I got far out of shape. Whereas in a former life, we don't need to rabbit trail this far, but I was a full-time personal trainer at one point in my life. And so now I look back and it's like, what happened? And so I very intentionally designed a routine for me where I can get up early in the morning, where people aren't going to bug me, listen to some Audible on my headset, go work out, go for a run. And it's really allowed me to get my work-life balance in order. Zig Ziglar said that we're mental, physical, and spiritual, and we need to work on all three at all times. And so that's what I started doing.
How did you get into Zig Ziglar?
Well, actually, it's my father. I can give him credit for that again. I remember when I was younger, I saw audio tapes around the house and books and different, literally cassette tapes. And for those who probably even still know what those are.
You lost
no
me.
Clue. No clue.
I think you said like a foreign language word. Yeah,
right,
go ahead. Yeah.
Right. I just remember seeing those things and hearing the name, right? I didn't know much about Zig Ziglar, but as soon as you hear the name Zig Ziglar, you can't forget it, right? It's a very unique name. And so as I was progressing through college, I started reading different books from John Maxwell and Zig Ziglar, and Les Brown has a lot of different things out there as well. And I began studying those things. And truly, being the quote-unquote Facebook guy, it's interesting that I saw a Facebook post about the Ziglar Legacy Certified Training Program, where you can go there and become a Ziglar Legacy Certified Trainer, learn the programs that Zig Ziglar himself taught, and be able to go teach them yourself. I was a full-time evangelist at that time who never felt comfortable asking for an honorarium from churches. And so I wanted to go become a speaker, trainer, and coach to create my own side income. Again, this would have been my third company, side income, to go out and really monetize. That way I could preach at churches for free. And so that's essentially what I did. I went down there. I learned from Tom Ziglar. I saw a need in their company for better digital marketing. And that's when I pitched them on really the best sales pitch of my life to allow me to come alongside them to help with their digital marketing. And Tom Ziglar opened that door and allowed me to do so.
Now, I want to go back to your childhood in these early mornings. I feel like we've struck on a very interesting theme that I haven't really discussed with other interviewees about this idea that, you would get up early and you'd come out and your dad was already up. I mean,
Yep.
Do you remember like being in your PJs? Do you remember kind of, dragging along your stuffed animal, or what was that like?
Yeah, I still remember the road. And so as we say this story, I remember the greenhouse we lived in Flushing, Michigan. It was probably a 1 acre property. I remember everything about it. I have the visual in my head. My room was up the stairs. It was a center staircase in the center of the house. And I remember when I came down the stairs, right to the left of me was my dad's home office. And he would be on the computer, most likely entering his invoices or his products that customers had ordered for the distribution company. So he was getting those things while the sun was still down. So that way he could go get some lawn sprinklers done while the sun was up. And I remember just sitting next to him and kind of watching. This was when computers were very old as well. And I remember watching the screen. I can still see the blue screen and the different font. I mean, it was a very old school font that was available at that time. And I remember those softwares, and I remember seeing him do it. I remember him answering the calls. It's where I learned a little bit of my own communication skills from him answering the phone, Salem Distribution or Salem Lawn Sprinkler. And I really learned a lot of those skills just from watching what he did.
What was the favorite thing that you would do with your parents outside of business, outside of your dad's business, maybe a little bit about your mom? What was it that really drew you to them?
Because we're talking very specifically about entrepreneurship and money and things along those lines, and of course in childhood, my father was my greatest influence there. My mom was there for the coddling, the education. Let's talk very specifically about my father just for that question. And if we have other questions that might relate to her, we can. I love her to death. And so I'm not not talking about her on purpose. She's awesome. But
No, it's fine.
for my father, I just remember that he was always trying to think of things outside of the box that we could do. Now, I do remember, unfortunately, a vast majority of my childhood was working. I was working with him, alongside him, whether it was supplying convenience stores, taking orders, or going out and literally digging holes and digging trenches for the lawn sprinkler company. I remember that. But he very intentionally was able to buy us a four-wheeler, and he was able to take us snowboarding, and he was able to do different things that I thought were very unique because of the work that he did. And I recognized that we wouldn't have those things if it wasn't for how hard he worked.
Got it. Very cool. Tell me a little bit more about your mom. I want to know,
Yeah.
and it doesn't necessarily have to do with
it's
your
awesome.
business or anything like that.
Yeah.
What is it that drew you to your mom?
So growing up, my mom was a realtor. I remember going to Century 21 Woodland Realty, and I remember seeing her cubicle and what she did, and watching her. Where success was a full fridge. She wanted to make sure we had new school clothes, new shoes, and a full fridge to come home to. That was how she measured success. And she always achieved it. And even still today, I know that if I drive up to Flint, Michigan, or Flushing, Michigan, where she lives, I know without a shadow of a doubt I can walk into her home and see a full fridge. I remember that, and I still actually take that and implement it in my life. I think going home to a full fridge, having good food, good fruits, and we don't buy everything cheap anymore. We buy some organic food, and having those things in the fridge makes me feel good about myself. It makes me feel like a success, knowing that I'm able to provide for my wife with a full fridge and provide for my baby girl so she has exactly what she needs. And I've taken those attributes and really applied them to my life as well.
It's interesting because in terms of helping children have a healthy childhood experience, and it sounds cliche and whatnot, but, you cannot underestimate diet and just, meeting those basic needs. And I hear about these kids who grow up in households where, food is not a thing, and they really want, and they really suffer, and they really struggle. And you just think, man, how do you make it without that? But then again, what are the great blessings of, having your needs provided for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, were you kind of a more rebellious child? Were you an easygoing child? Sounds like you were a hard worker. What was your temperament?
In comparison to my older brother and sister, I was the youngest of three. They were the quote unquote troublemakers. I was the troublemaker that slid under the radar and learned from what they did. I've always had mentors in my life.
Troublemaking done right.
I've always had mentors. I say that a lot. My brother and sister were my first mentors. I watched what they did, and I did not repeat it, because typically they would do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
However, I was still a troublemaker. I never got caught. I still slid under the radar.
When you say I never did the wrong thing, it was like I did bad things, but I never did them wrong.
Yeah, I just never got caught.
Strategic about it. I like this. Okay.
So if they got D's on the report card and I got C's, I was the good kid, right? Because they were just a little bit. So I was always an entrepreneur. I've always loved this idea of buying and selling things. And so in second grade, I would sell yo-yos, right? My dad owned a distribution company, and so I'd either get them from him or a dollar store or wherever I was getting them from. I'd go to the elementary school, and I was convincing kids to take money out of their fundraiser envelopes to pay for the yo-yos. And so entrepreneur, definitely at the core. I found something they wanted, and I found a means for them to pay for it. And then when their parents found out what they did, the principal called. So it was awesome. Good times.
Wait. The kids had already got out. They'd already raised funds selling who knows what, candy bars or whatever. And they go to school and they're like, I have this money that I am supposed to give to my teacher, but I'm going to give it to Jacob Salem for yo-yos.
I've always been in sales.
Wow.
So, and they were the big ones. They weren't cheap. They were the big ones. They were, they lit up and stuff. You could, I don't know.
Ball bearings?
Yeah, all of that.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, all the bells and whistles.
This was like the yo-yo to have, right? And so I very well positioned it. I would always play with them in the hallway and make sure they saw them. And so I've always been in sales. Then also growing up, 14 years old, I needed a higher profit margin. So that's when I became a pharmacist without a license. And so we'll let the listeners kick in on that a little bit. I never did anything with hard drugs. And there's still a big piece of me. I joke about it now, but there's still a big piece of regret in there because I saw some of my friends down spiral over the years. Yeah. Probably because of a gateway, which was Jacob. The Lord has allowed me to really forgive myself on that. And all those friends I'm still friends with. We still not hang out or anything, but we're on Facebook. Everybody's friends, right?
Yeah.
And so I transitioned into that. And then a little bit later on, about 17 years old, I found the Lord, or he found me, however you want to position it. So that's when my life began to get better. I began making better decisions, more responsible decisions, caring about what success actually meant to me rather than just going day to day. I was always financially savvy. I've always been in sales. But then when I found Jesus, it had more of a purpose. I wanted to have integrity with what I did. I gear every decision I make in my life based off the integrity I learned in those initial years of becoming a Christian.
I have two questions, two reactions to that. The first is, what do you think drew you towards the sale of drugs and into that lifestyle? What was it that was drawing you in? And I guess the second one, I'll let you answer that afterwards. And that is, what influences got you out? And you talked about religion as being a major one. I'd also be interested in hearing a lot about adult figures, maybe as they influenced you either way.
My wife and I were joking about this literally just the other night. Growing up, I watched them, and my parents were great parents, I promise. But growing up, I watched the movie Scarface, which if you're listening to this and you're young, don't watch the movie, countless times. It's a 2.5-hour movie that is, or maybe more than that. I think it's 2 hours and 45 minutes of basically drug dealing. And we'll just say it. So it's sex, drugs, and alcohol. That's what was going through my mind through the videos that I was watching at the time, as well as I grew up on the outskirts of Flint, Michigan. And in Flint, Michigan, that was the society circles that I saw and hung around were doing those things. So I saw it as a way to make money. It's always been my thing. I'm always looking for the next sale. Even in the company we have today, we have a sales team. We have people on the team that do it. I still brag, jokingly, but brag about the fact that I love being in sales. I'm the number one sales rep. I love traveling and speaking. I love going to the back of the room. I love shaking hands. I love being in sales. And so for me, it was just another product for me to sell. And even now, I'm still in sales. I'm just selling something that has a different value to it. Something that can really help somebody rather than hurt someone. You know,
it's interesting you say that because I've talked with other people who sold on the streets. I've had a lot of friends who have dealt with drugs and whatnot, and I've had some who have dealt with strong addiction. What's really fascinating to me is that you could take those same skills and put it to something that grows and something that's good. And so, I tend not to be too hard on kids who get hooked on drugs and stuff like that because, I get it. I see that we've glamorized it in our movies. So of course, for some kids, it's going to be very appealing, but I think that it's really great that you took away like, okay, this was bad, but there was something really good about what I was learning,
Yeah.
But then what about the influences that got you away?
Really, I can attribute it to one event. I went and heard evangelist. My dad actually invited us to a church where Harry and Cheryl Salem were preaching. Now, she in some distant way is related to me, and I forget the connection.
Yeah.
I think Harry is my dad's second cousin. But either way, he let me know that, hey, Miss America is going to be speaking at the church. And so I go. But then I find out that she was Miss America in 89. Well, I was born in 90.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't as appealing as it sounded. But nonetheless, I was there. And I remember seeing these two preach side by side together about the gospel and almost arguing with each other on stage about the gospel in a fun way. And it was the first time that I actually had ever really heard the gospel that is God so loved the world, he gave his only son because he loves you. I mean, let's just paraphrase that. I heard that he loved me. And I got that into my head and into my heart. And it was in that moment that something changed and something clicked. They did the salvation prayer, who wants to ask Jesus to come into their life. And basically at that moment, I wasn't so convinced that Jesus was real. I was just afraid of hell, right? They were doing it was almost a turn and burn in a roundabout way too, where it was like, heaven is real and hell is real. Where are you going? And so my salvation prayer at 14, which I was saved. So I was actually a pharmacist. I was selling drugs and saved all in the same year. And then I still sold drugs 14, 15, 16, 17 for like 3 years after that. So it's been a long, long process, and I think it always will be. God was saving me then. He's saving me today, and I'm sure tomorrow he'll be asking me to change something else, which is awesome. So my prayer was literally, God, I don't know if you're real. I don't know if what these people up there are saying is real at all. But listen, if you're real, I'd rather go to heaven than go to hell. So if that's the case, please come into my heart and save me. That was literally my salvation prayer. And that one small little faith of a mustard seed was enough to begin growing inside of me and start weeding out all the weeds in my life and to really produce some good fruit. And that's really what transition happened for me.
What's interesting to me about that experience is that, you talk about how the prospect of hell was this very terrifying thing. I get this impression that you were pretty aware at the time that you were selling drugs that you were doing something destructive and that there was something there there was a pain that was present that you were very aware of. And sometimes I think of kids who are dealing drugs and I wonder, are they really aware of what's going on around them and how much hurt they're creating and whatnot? What was that? Am I right? Give me a few thoughts on that.
I would almost very respectfully disagree. I don't think I knew. I don't know that I knew that I was doing was wrong. I was basically selling marijuana and maybe Vicodin pills. And then there was another supplement that I had come across. I don't even remember what it was called, but they were like happy pills, basically. Maybe like today's Adderall. It wasn't Adderall because it didn't exist. But so I didn't actually believe that what I was doing was wrong. I actually thought that what I was doing was right. I was making a profit for myself, putting some money in the bank. I was able to buy my own food, which is basically Little Caesars, which still today is Little Caesars. It's amazing how things don't change. I didn't know that selling marijuana was actually wrong. I knew that if I got caught selling it at school, there would be consequences, and I knew that it was illegal. But I don't think in my core, I actually knew that I was doing something wrong. I think in that moment, I thought what I was doing was right.
Wow. No, and that's interesting. You should say it that way because it matches up so well with what you were saying earlier about you and your sibs.
Yeah.
The thing that you knew was really wrong, the ultimate consequence that you wanted to avoid was not the idea of doing wrong, but of getting caught doing it.
Yep. And that's exactly as a child what I did. That's really how I coasted through up until I had that come to Jesus moment. I think that's human nature at a core. I think every decision we make as humans, and this is getting kind of deeper than I thought, but I think every decision we make as humans is at the core what we think is the right decision in the moment. Even if it's wrong, I still think it's what we thought was right in the moment because ultimately I do believe we all have free will. And so I'm convinced that because of free will in our lives, that we're always doing what we think at the time is the best decision for us going forward. And we think it's ultimately right. Wrong could be, it just depends on your definition of right and wrong. But I am convinced that every human, whether you're a murderer or whether you're a saint, I'm convinced that in that moment, you're only doing it because in your mind, whether it's right or wrong, you think it's right.
It sounds like kind of a more contextual argument for morality. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. It sounds like you had some really great examples with your mom and your dad in terms of what they were teaching you about hard work, about providing. Do you have any additional advice that you would provide for today's parents?
Circle back to the scripture now, right? Raise a child up in the way they shall go and they will not depart from it. I have an overly Christian worldview now, and that's being a former pastor and current evangelist again, that crafts my worldview. And so for me, it's really teaching children the difference between right and wrong. That, hey, it's not just wrong if you get caught. It's wrong regardless. And that was something that I didn't know growing up. I didn't comprehend the fact that what I was doing was wrong no matter what. I was thinking it was only wrong if I got caught. Right? Is basically what we were kind of talking about a moment ago. And so I'm convinced that parents today, and I am a new parent, very new parent. So I have a 7-month-old baby girl, that if you will give them the attention that they deserve and the attention that they need, they're going to long for that attention, good, bad, or ugly. It breaks my heart when I'm walking through, and this is rabbit trailing a little bit, but walking through a mall or Walmart or in a play area, and you see kids playing, and then you see the parents staring at their cell phone. And so I'm convinced that a lot of the delinquency in the world, including mine, could be prevented if parents would give their children more attention in general, good, bad, or ugly. With the fact that I'm very proud of my father for providing for us, working 12-hour days, it gave me so much freedom that there wasn't much oversight. That's why I was able to slip into the paths that I did. Also, and I love my parents. I love my step-parents as well. My parents are remarried. I think the divorce rate makes raising children that much harder as well. There's so many proven statistics about when parents are divorced, what the children are going to end up like, and proven statistics about when a parent is working 12, 16-hour days, that your children aren't getting the attention. So whether you're Christian or not, or whether you're whatever religion, the core of it would be my advice or my recommendation or my opinion, wherever that lands, will be just to spend time with your children. Read good books to them. Read the fun books to them. Take them places. Do things with them and let them know that they are loved. Because again, and I could circle back to Zig Ziglar quotes all day long, the way children spell love is time. T-I-M-E. And I just believe that to be true.
I actually really agree with you on that point. I think that it is so easy in today's world to get really caught up in what's going on. And there's constant stimulation, and there are constant options for ways to use your time that do not involve raising your kids and being engaged with them. Have you ever witnessed this idea of just not wanting to get caught play itself out in the professional world? What does that mean to you in terms of the business that you do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And truly, I don't know that I have a story like that in the professional world now. I don't know that I've seen it, other than you see news articles and stories of other people who have gone through some really, really terrible situations in their business.
Yeah.
But in my day to day, and with any of my current clients, we have amazing clients. I don't know that I have any stories like that. We've actually put in the core mission of our company, and even when we sign clients, basically the philosophy that if we can't operate on realms of integrity, that we're just not going to do it. And we've literally dropped clients because of that. And so in those stories, I don't want to give those client stories. We just don't sign them as a client. That way we don't have to cross any bridges or decide to cross or burn any bridges throughout those agreements that may come back to haunt us.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've noticed that, we see all these kind of movies and this glorification and corruption in business and stuff like that. But what's interesting is I don't really see a lot of that. What I do see is that when someone is dishonest, it totally destroys their credibility. I mean, I won't name names. I actually have seen it in up close when, I was working with a gentleman. He was representing the interests of another gentleman, and he was telling this other gentleman that he was further along in a process that we were working through than he actually was.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that this was happening, so that when this other gentleman contacted us and say, have you guys done this and this? I had to say, sir, no. We have not gotten this far in this application process. And again, that all sounds cryptic and who knows what I'm talking about, but that's kind of the point.
Makes sense.
I'm not interested in burning anybody right now, but the point is that I've seen it happen. And when people get caught in the professional world doing stuff like that, I mean, this kid, his reputation was toast.
Yep.
It was gone. And so, that's why I'm really grateful that you learned that at a young age. And I think a lot of, particularly juvenile boys, they just do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And let's help them to just learn. Okay, get it out of your system. And then you can do something incredible in the professional world, like what Mr. Jacob Salem is doing. That's great.
That's really what happened. I was able to make all the wrong decisions young, learn from them, and really go forward with the right integrity in everything that we do. And we've learned, kind of like you said, if we see anybody not operate at that integrity, we just don't move forward. And the way I would word that is similar to what you were saying. It's basically either over-promising and under-delivering. If we see that, we just walk away. Or they simply make a promise that they possibly can't keep. And if those things happen and they don't deliver real results, I believe as Grant Cardone said something along the lines, and I read a lot and I listen to a lot of things. So Grant Cardone said something that he says, overpromise, promise before you even know how to deliver, then go deliver it. But if you don't deliver it, the market will eat you alive, right? If you go out there and you start making promises and then you don't uphold what you said you were going to do, the market is going to weed you out. And I'm just convinced that is absolutely, and that's a paraphrase, but I'm convinced that's absolutely true. That if you don't go out there and do what you say you're going to do, in the realm of social media and the way the world works right now, you will get removed from the market, whether you want to be removed or not.
Totally. Again, paraphrasing, totally cool here. That's, whatever. I paraphrase all the time because I have a horrible memory. But you've talked about some of the things in the past that you learned from mistakes that you made. What are some of the right things that you've done that just make you feel so happy?
Yeah. I've read a lot of books, which makes me happy. And I look at books as mentors because I'm learning from other people's mistakes. And so some of the things that we've done in our business today that make me really happy, that some of them I learned from mistakes, is implementing contracts, right? Bringing things into this business that really, really show exactly what we're going to do, what timeline we're going to do it. So our clients know what I promised them. And so my team knows what was promised. And that has made our relationships with our clients way, way stronger. After Arabella was born, our beautiful baby girl, I realized that I no longer wanted to work sun up to sundown. And so I very strictly started enforcing the fact that our company is only open from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And our clients had to sign their new contracts to reflect that I understand. Literally, there's a subclause that says, I understand that this is when this business is open and available for work. They can email us, but they don't call us. That I'm proud of. Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, I've read it countless times and hard copy and listened to it on Audible. Anybody who is interested in building a business, starting a business, or being an entrepreneur, I highly over the top recommend that book because it told stories and taught about systems and organization and processes in business. Learning that book and being able to implement it in this company has revolutionized not only my future, but my team's future and the business's future.
Nice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate those business thoughts. I think that there are things that we can teach our kids early on that help them to become more reliable. I like that you put so much weight on making promises and keeping promises and defining promises and expectations.
Yep.
What is your favorite charitable cause or organization?
So we worked with a nonprofit organization called the Elite Foundation, where their core is educate, empower, and evolve, where they work with women and children who were caught in human trafficking. They, of course, use their funds to get women and children free from human trafficking. But then they have programs to help them become published authors, to really help them. And if I could use their words, I think they use something along the lines of free from their past, free from their struggles, free from their horrible memories and experiences. They focus on reintroducing normal lives to many nameless faces and victims of human trafficking in many ugly forms. They do that by providing safe housing, education, intense and trauma-specific therapy and counseling. So the Elite Foundation is an incredible foundation that we've been blessed to be a part of. Jessica Vera and Wendy, who oversee it, are incredible women, and it is their passion really to help. And the primary is women. They do have women and children, but the stories I hear are women who were caught into human trafficking and remind them that they really are something special and that God has something special and unique for them and that what happened to them doesn't need to define their future.
Wow. And here's the thing. When you're talking about human trafficking, in a way, are you talking about the United States or is this a global mission? Because I do know that, there is a big human trafficking problem in the United States alone.
Yeah, it is a global mission, but I do know the primary of the testimonials I see are U.S. based, are women who are either getting sold overseas and returning or however that looks. So I do know the primary of their testimonials are women in America where this is happening to, but I do know it is a global mission.
Wow. Can you give me a success story that you kind of hold dear, something that keeps you really committed to this cause?
I don't know any of the names. I know the concept.
Fine, yeah.
And so I love seeing the stories where they're helping these women go out, become successful entrepreneurs, truly. But one of the things that they do for these women that I think is just over the top is they help them go through a process after they've gone through therapy, after they've recovered, after they've now established value for themselves. They help them become a self-published author, whether it's in a group book or whether it's an individual. So now, not only did I overcome my fear, but I was able to write write my story down about it. So that way I can go help someone else overcome the same thing I went through. Because there's many people out there that go through this and people don't even understand how many actually go through the human trafficking stuff. There's many people out there that have gone through it, got out successfully, but never fully recovered. And they're afraid to approach somebody for help. And what these books are doing is these books are helping reach more women who have gone through it. And also it establishes the women who went through it as an authority so they can go out there and build their own business or build their own speaking career or go do something that they're proud of.
That is great. Love the cause. And I can imagine that you mentioned that this is mostly focused on women, but of course there's a children element to it. Yep. Going back to the idea of kids who go home and there's just not enough food in the refrigerator. Imagine this hell that these kids are going through and how we can fortify and strengthen them and save them out of these horrible situations. Very honorable cause. Jacob Salem, I want to thank you for your time and for your stories, for just your passion about what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here. I've been blessed to be a part of this show.
Everybody else, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the interview and found useful ideas about things you can do with your kids. Be sure to check the show notes at www.choosethenickel.com for links to names, books, and other resources we discussed in today's show. Also, please subscribe to our newsletter and visit our contact page where you can give us feedback. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube, and you can follow Choose the Nickel on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We invite you to share Choose the Nickel with your friends and join us in our quest to teach kids financial freedom.